Hello whistleblowers everywhere. This tutorial today is a request from a number of people who've asked me about playing the high notes on the whistle, and some of them have been struggling to consistently get those high notes, or have been relying upon tonguing to get those high notes, which is all well and good, it's fair enough, but there may be times when tonguing isn't appropriate or isn't applicable, or is just not the right way to go about things. So it's good to be able to move between the registers on the whistle simply by using breath control. I think that's a really important skill to develop, rather than just having to tongue because that's the only option you've got. Yes, by all means, it's great, and sometimes tonguing will be the answer, but not every time. So it's good to be able to have different options in your tool bag, so that you can tongue if you need to, but also if you need to, you can just simply use breath control. It's good practice as well, and it's good to be able to control your breathing to get some of those high notes. So just to start off, I'm going to give you a couple of little tips, a few little pointers, and a couple of little exercises. And again, with a lot of these exercises, they're not hugely interesting, but if you spend 5 minutes warming up, maybe just do 5 minutes a day, or however often you practice, but maybe grab 5 minutes at the beginning and maybe just a couple of minutes at the end as a cool down, just to practice some of the exercises on getting these high notes. So let's have a look at things you can do to make it easier to get some of these high notes on your whistle. So in order to get those high notes clean and to sound every single time, you are going to have to put some practice in, and you are going to have to develop the abdominal muscles where you push from to get it clean. The other thing you can do, and I use this extensively, especially if I'm doing big jumps, is it's a French word called embouchure, which is basically just how you hold your mouth. Now, clarinet players, saxophone players, flute players, or woodwind players talk about embouchure, but we never hear that really mentioned in whistle playing. That's because it's not really something which has gone into any depth. I mean, basically what we're told, just stick it in your gob and blow. Yeah. So what I recommend trying, if you're really struggling getting those high notes, is to focus what we call your embouchure. And so you can't really see it because I've got this huge moustache here, but these muscles here at the corner of your mouth, what I do is I pull them in tight. Yeah, like that. Imagine you're sucking on lemons, or you're a disapproving old lady and going, ooh, no, I don't like that. Or, so these, yeah, and you just pull them in, the muscles at the corner of your mouth, yeah? So what I'm doing is pulling them tight to get the upper register, yeah? Now, we'll take a bit of practice, but you don't want to pull them ridiculously tight so that you look like you've had a very bad facelift. What you want to do is just tweak the sides of your mouth, and what that does is focusing your airstream, and I find that does help. Some people may not agree with me, but I do find that does help in terms of focusing and getting those high notes. So what I'm doing is going normal B. So let's use G to start with, yeah? Normal G, octave G. And we want to get that clean break between the low register and the high register. So when I go up to the high, I'm just pulling tight there, the corners of my mouth. Now on G, maybe it's not so important, but when you go up to the B, C sharp and a very high D, I think it does make a difference. So if I do A, you can maybe see a very, very slight movement of, would be a movement of my beard. Unfortunately, you've got all this to contend with, but what you are doing is you're getting a movement from the corners of your mouth, just pulling them tight. And what I find that does, it focuses your airstream. So you want a faster airstream, you want a quicker airstream. It's not so much that you're just blowing harder, but you're blowing a more focused airstream so that you're splitting the registers, yeah? So if we go up to B, C sharp, and high D. Or some whistles like this two-fingered. I mean, it's quite painfully sort of loud up there and quite very high pitched. And to be honest with you, not many tunes go all the way up to that very high D. But if you can get it and you need a tune, or it's in a tune that you're playing, it's useful then to be able to get it cleanly. So the first exercise is really a basic one, and it's just working in octaves. But what we want to do is we want to get a nice clean movement from the low D to the high D, back down again. So we're going low, high, low. So the other thing when you're playing that middle D, do make sure you're getting that top finger off. If you don't, you can overblow it very easily and get the harmonic. When you pick this top finger off, you've no danger of that. You can blow as hard as you want. So if I'm playing a D, that's at quite a loud volume. Now if I put this finger down, it's going to split the harmonic. So if you pick that finger up for the middle D and get into the habit of doing that, again, you're cultivating a good habit where you're not in any danger of splitting that middle D or getting the upper partial of the harmonic. Occasionally I will use what I call a cheat do. If I've got a cheat D, sorry, if I've got a if I'm just playing it really quickly. But wherever possible, do try and get into the habit of lifting this finger up. You'll thank me later, I promise you. A little bit of work now just to get that ingrained, and you've got a really good habit there of that middle D. Yeah, always try as much as possible to pick that finger up, because again, like I said, you can always go and you just get that awful sort of harmonic. Yeah, so excuse me. So do try and remember to pick that up. So the first exercise, all we are doing is just blowing the lower octave, higher octave, lower octave, dead easy. So tongue the first note and then just use your breath, because this is a breath control exercise, to go up to the middle D and then back down again. And so we do this all the way through. Now if you want, you can go to high C sharp and even high D, or whichever works best on your instrument. So what will go up, what we do is we reverse coming down, but instead of going low, high, low, we go high, low, high. I'll start from B. So what you want to avoid is that sort of fuzzy area, especially on the higher notes where you're not hitting cleanly. So if I go, So again, what I'm doing, pulling the corners of my mouth, tightening my embouchure, focusing the breath. And again, only tongue the first note, don't tongue any of the other notes. So once you can do that exercise, then you can double up and maybe do it a bit quicker, like this. And then back down, yeah. So you're finding the different air speeds, the different pressures. Control is coming from your abdomen, and also when we get into those high notes, we're tightening our embouchure by pulling in the corners of our mouth. Yeah. Ooh. Just imagine an old lady who is not approving, you know, going, ooh, I don't like that. Yeah, that's the kind of thing you want to try and achieve. Obviously, you know, maybe not to that degree of disapproval, but just try tightening it up. It does focus. I'm going low, high, just pulling like you're doing a daft grin. Just like that. Yeah, it may look a bit peculiar at first, but it's not so bad for me, as I say, because I've got all this glorious beard, all this glorious facial hair. But yeah, it's a good idea. And again, if you're struggling getting some of these high notes, that does help. You're focusing your airstream, you're narrowing your airstream, and that is giving you a more focused upper octave. So give it a go, give it a go. So that's one exercise which we're going to do. Let's have a look at another exercise. This is an exercise which I give to a lot of my students, and it's a great exercise in working down, up and down a scale, but with using octaves as well. So to start with, you may want to do this in two halves, and I suggest you do, because with this exercise, again, speed is not where we're up to. We are looking at getting nice, clean fingering and getting the pure note to sound every time. So it's a little repeating pattern. So we go low D, middle D, C sharp, back to middle D, B, back to middle D, A, middle D, G, middle D, F sharp, middle D, E, middle D, low D, middle D. So you end up back where you started from. Yeah, you end up back where you started. So, sorry. Take a breath. So we're using this middle D as an anchor note. We're going back to that note each time. So that's doing it in two halves. Once you get comfortable with that, we can do it all in the one breath. And again, tongue the first note, none of the others. This is all about breath control. So the second or the second stage, we do it on E now. F. G. A. then B. And again, when you're playing those upper notes, use a bit of pressure on the corners of your mouth just to focus your embouchure. Once you get good at doing it at that speed, then what you can do is do the whole thing in the one breath. You might have to do it a bit quicker, so E. All the way up to B. You can do C sharp and D if you want, but I'm going to only go up to B. So then what we do, once we've got comfortable at that, we reverse the pattern. We start high and then go low. And at the end, we add 2 notes the same just to balance it out. So again, let's start on B. So I'm just separating with a cut those 2 notes at the end that are the same. A. Great exercise that for helping you work on getting your octaves and your upper register notes cleanly. And like we did all in one breath going up, we can, once you get good at this, all in one breath going down. So things to concentrate on that exercise, clean finger movements, yeah? we want to go. So we don't want that. Yeah, so we've got to get our fingers moving simultaneously and at the same time. So practice it going up, yeah? Coming down. So that's a really good exercise. So we've done that exercise, playing scalic passage, a repeating passage, and using different notes as an anchor note. And then we did the playing octave exercise, and then we did the octave in groups of 2 or groups of 3. The important thing is you're practicing focusing your air to get the upper notes, yeah? So there shouldn't be any problem unless your whistle is defective, but most whistles can manage perfectly fine, and not that many whistles I've found are that defective. But unfortunately, after doing all this, if you're still really struggling, you might have a bit of a defective whistle. But saying that, now that will work on all whistles. I've got an O'Brien improved one, and we can do same thing. Yeah, it works on every whistle, and great to do it if you've got a lower whistle, say an F, or even a low D whistle. These exercises are just as applicable on all different whistles. So have a go at implementing some of the things that I've talked about in terms of embouchure, maybe tightening up the corners of your mouth, focusing that breath to get the upper register notes. And again, it's just a matter of practice, but take your time with it. Work on these abdominal muscles, work on supporting the breath so that you're pushing not from here, yeah, but you're pushing from your abdominal wall, your abdominal muscles, and you're pushing out. They used to say it was diaphragmatic breathing, but it's not, because your diaphragm, you don't have conscious control over your diaphragm. So what we're doing is we're using the abdominal muscles to push the air, and that's where the control comes from. Same with all woodwind instruments or even brass instruments, same with singers. That's where they support, they call it support, and that's where you want to support. Okay, so that's about it, folks. It's not a huge long one, just a few little exercises to help you get those upper register notes. And again, just a matter of practice and being patient. Be patient with yourself. Okay, folks, hopefully you found this interesting and useful. If you have done, please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate that. Heading towards my first 1,000 subscriptions. I think I'm about 960, so I've got about another 40. So I'd really appreciate it greatly if you could subscribe. Any comments, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Any suggestions for future tutorials? If you're struggling with anything, I'm happy to maybe include some of the issues that you're experiencing in future videos, future tutorials. And again, tune breakdowns. Any tune breakdowns that you feel you'd like to have a go at, I'm always open to suggestions. I'm going to have a couple of new ones coming up fairly shortly. But for now, folks, I'm going to bid you all farewell, and I shall see you all fairly soon. Bye for now, folks.